has not been.
I'm going to reopen the public hearing, 489 Central Turnpike, Sutton Police Department. Jeff?
Good evening.
Yes, you're right.
Jeff Howland, JH Engineering. I have with me the architectural firm, Jeff McElravy and Matt Salad, and then with the OPM in the back. Police chief is here, and other members of the building committee. We are here for the proposed police station at 489 Central Turnpike. As you all know, it's the corner, or where the former Blue Jay restaurant was, which is the existing conditions. Central Turnpike, Putnam Hill Road. The old Blue Jay, we showed the configuration of where the building used to be. We have done some test pits in the last week and found that the building was basically, the hole was just full of rubble. So we show it on the plan as the location. The parking lots are actually there today, and we will be removing all of the impervious area that's there and reconfiguring both entrances in the building location. The existing septic system is also still there, and we believe the old public supply well is there, but it's below the rubble. We are not going to use this building as a public water supply. It's not needed, so we'll abandon that well per DEP's requirements. So we have the proposed layout of the building. The front door, which is up here, tries to align with the center of the intersection, which was the intent of the building committee. It is a two-story building, one story from the front, and then 2 stories in the back. We're using the grade change to sort of hide the police vehicles back here. We have a narrower entrance at both Putnam Hill Road, which this will be for police vehicles only. And we have a narrow entrance, 24 feet off of Putnam Hill Road, which will be used as the public access and for the egress for the police station. They can use either one, but this lets them to get out both ways. There will be signed that this will be do not enter for both police and also from the general public. The rear of the building has, there is, as Jen pointed out, the base bit of the building will actually just be these 2 bays, and then there's 2 alternates to add additional Sally Port Bay and then a garage for service. We also are showing a canopy in the back for the storage of vehicles. It's just a canopy. It will be to protect the vehicles during inclement weather. Now this site is, basically the entire site is being regraded from what is existing today. The building itself sits about a foot higher than the intersection. So we're going to utilize that site, and then, as I said, in the back, we're not going to be able to be seen for these vehicles, at least from Putnam Hill Road. The septic system is going back over here. It's the same location where the proposed new Blue Jay septic system was going, which was actually theirs was fairly large. This is going in this back corner, and a new well will be installed up in this location here. We did receive comments from the Board of Assessors, from Graves Engineering, from Jen, and from our Conservation Commission hearing on Wednesday night. So there has been some modifications to the plan. I think we've addressed all of the Board of Assessors comments. We did initially have the incorrect building setback line for the rear yard. We had it as 50. It's been reduced to 20. One of the questions was why there's a sidewalk here. There's a crosswalk now across this intersection. So since we had a sidewalk coming to here anyways, why don't we just extend it to this location, to the existing crosswalk? We do now, this plan also shows an access or a handicapped access from this door here or around the west side of the building to the sidewalk in the front. Building will be serviced with a large cistern, which is going in this location in here. There's a series of 6 tanks, all designed by the mechanical engineer. And they will go here and they'll be fed off of the well, which will also service the domestic. So the septic is in the back. We do have an oil gas separator that goes in the rear. to take the flows or any runoff that comes out of the building in the sally port and the garage. We have a space up front, which is designated as the safe drop-off spot, which we're putting up in this location here. We do have 2 handicap spaces, and there's going to be in the front there'll be 2 flagpoles with a bench and some decorative tables in this location. The changes that we have made, so we've addressed all of Graves Engineering, was basically just some labeling of some of the drain lines, so those have all been corrected. The bigger comments really are the Conservation Commission. They're a little concerned about the alignment of the building and how it sits on the lot. They would have liked us to move the building closer to Putnam Hill Road. However, right in the beginning, we were told not to move the building within the side yard or within the front yard setback of Putnam Hill or Central Turnpike. The existing building alignment, we basically held that same corner of the building. So that is the reason why this building can't get any closer to Putnam Hill Road, is so that we did not violate the front yard setback. Now this line, the new right-of-way line of Putnam Hill Road is what was approved at your annual town meeting. But to assist or to sort of meet some of the issues that the Conservation Commission has, is we've narrowed this access drive from the rear of the building up to the front on the eastern side of the site from 24 to 16 feet to pull it 8 feet further away from the wetlands line. This will become one-way. We talked to Chief, and Chief is okay with this being a one-way egress. So this pulls us a little bit further away from the wetlands. There's also a drain line that runs, that's existing from the intersection that runs through the site. If you go out there, there's a manhole, actually has a rock on top of it now. That is the manhole that takes the road drainage from Putnam Hill Road and Central Turnpike from the intersection. Because of the location of it, runs it right through the middle of where these cisterns are. We're actually diverting that flow around and keeping the same location. We're replacing that manhole. It's in poor condition. It's an old barrel block manhole. We're replacing that, running it around, and then bringing it right back into the same location. It does not come into, or it does not get added to our drainage system. We're diverting it around. One of the items the commission requested is that we put a storm scepter on that line, so we're going to put a storm scepter on that drain line out here. So we'll actually have 2, one here and then one down below. Before we reduced the width of that pavement, we were reducing the overall impervious from when the Blue Jay restaurant was there to today by roughly 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. I haven't calculated now, but we'll lose another maybe 1,000 or so square feet by reducing this width up through here. We have requested waivers. I think there's 9 of them, 8 of them, 10 of them. Jen, do they have a copy of that?
Dated June 15th.
Correct.
It's included in last meeting's material.
So requesting a waiver from the size of the sign, the loading spaces. We're not providing any loading spaces here. The use of the building, we don't think it's necessary to provide a loading space. Though inherently the way it's laid out over in here and then through the sally port, that can be constituted as technically a loading spaces, though it's not deemed as really a loading space. Requesting a waiver from the parking within the setback. The original Blue Jay restaurant parking actually was in the right-of-way of Putnam Hill Road and Central Turnpike. We're moving that further back, but there is still some parking within the setback up in here. We're requesting waiver from the landscaping, though we are showing landscaping on here. It was just a general waiver, even though we do show it, it's just a general waiver just in case. The standard architect size is 30 by 42, so we're requesting a waiver to go from the 24 by 36 to 30 by 42. And then the requirement to calculate cuts and fills and traffic study along with a community impact statement. Community impact statement, the town already owns the parcel. It was deemed back, I believe it was 2012, to be used as the police station. So we didn't think that at this point the fiscal impact assessment was necessary. Can answer any questions that you have.
Questions from the board?
What's a Sally port?
So the Sally Port is when they bring in a prisoner, they have a secure location that they can lock both doors.
Got it.
And they can bring
Okay.
them in, or if they need to bring somebody out, vice versa.
This is designed so you drive it one more and
Drive out, right, it's a drive-through. An ambulance can fit inside there, et cetera, if they need to bring someone up with an ambulance or bring.
Can you tell me what the dotted lines are, that are dashed lines, that the
This right
parallel
here?
ones? Yeah.
There is an abandoned gas easement. Used to be mobile, now I think it's Buckeye Partners runs through here. We tried to get them, the town surveyor tried to get them to locate it, but they refused to come out, as they said it's inactive, therefore they would not locate the easement. But it's an abandoned gas easement.
There's no gas running through it?
There is nitrogen, I believe, in the gas line. The location, this is what was shown on the original coil engineering plan for when the Blue Jay was being proposed.
And where is it look like, I'm having a hard time, is it within what's now kind of like the parking lot?
It's actually off to the east, but the existing parking lot is, so it would have been this portion of it. So it's basically, our entrance is similar, basically the same location as it was before. We tried to move it as far away from the intersection as possible, but utilizing the existing, almost a curb and then narrowing it down. And then once we get beyond here, we avoid it. And most of it actually is in the wetlands anyway. As you get further to the rear of the site, it's actually goes through the wetland line.
Jeff, when I'm thinking about roads, not pipelines, there's a difference between an abandonment and a discontinuance. When they say abandoned, does that mean that it will never be used again, or?
No. Our understanding, because they kept it with nitrogen, that they can open it up at any time. I believe the line goes from Providence to Worcester, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Goes from Douglas to Worcester.
Well, from Douglas, it also goes to Providence.
But so abandoned is different than,
Yes, they're not flowing the product through the pipeline, but they retain the rights to it.
So when Nick tried to contact them to see if they would locate it and they wouldn't do that, did they have any commentary about maintaining access over it and those kind of things?
No. No. We were hoping that they would locate the pipe so we can at least get the center line of it, but they wouldn't come out and locate it.
So,
At least that, the surveyor, the town surveyor for the right-of-way was Andrew Survey, and they contacted them about locating it, and they wouldn't come out.
so do you think there's any restrictions on what you can do on top of it, or?
None that I'm aware of, and the location is in the same spot, we're not really changing, and we're not changing the grades over it.
Marty Linder. I happen to own 200 acres across the street, and that pipeline goes to a quarter of a mile through my property. They have it many times come out and located it for me very easily with a phone call. It is only 19 to 24 inches deep, this 8-inch in diameter pipe. They don't want you to do anything over it without their blessing, and that means drive over it or anything, not regrading over it, putting a parking lot or a driveway entrance over it, anything. So I would suggest that you do a little more due diligence on that aspect, because that could come back and bite you.
I know the town surveyor, I contacted him, and he attempted to
That's
get them.
Andrews.
That's correct.
Your name's on that plan, not his, sir.
That is correct, except he did the existing condition survey.
Well, I would suggest somebody calls him.
Calling it dig safe. And they'll show up.
Yeah?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Nick, did you have something?
I hope you've asked just what I was gonna ask.
Okay.
And I agree with Marty.
When you said town surveyor, I thought we were talking about Nick. Let's
No,
clarify
no.
that. We were
No, no.
talking
That was
about
Andrews.
Andrews who did the survey
For
on
the,
that site.
for the town, that's
Yes,
correct.
okay.
As I see it, you're regrading that. You have grades going, you have slopes going in there for regrading purposes, et cetera.
Yes.
The plans I looked at today show that
Yes,
anyway.
actually, we're raising it up over it a
Yeah.
little bit, yes.
I crossed it 300 feet from there and had to put a concrete pad over it with rebar, et cetera, a foot thick, blah, blah, blah. So I have a little bit of knowledge with what you have to do there.
Got the phone number?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
I
share
live on
that.
Mendon Road, and I know that I've seen, at least at one time, I used to see signs on Mendon Road for that pipe. Maybe it's gone today, but
And there used to
usually
be
the-
some that I believe crossed Putnam Hill up here, too.
Yeah, and usually the sign says,
Yep.
by law,
Yep.
call this number.
Yep.
And that's a regulation by the State Public Utility Commission.
I think one of the problems is Buckley Partners now owns it. When Mobile owned it, because I know when they did Rebecca Drive, Mobile was contacted and they did come out.
Now it's a different
According to
number.
Andrews,
Yeah.
who did contact Buckley, they said they weren't interested in locating it.
Wrong answer.
Uh,
Need to try somebody else.
Yeah.
Richard?
Hi, Mike Dufresne. You mentioned on the public drinking water, if it wasn't necessary, what are the guidelines for the public drinking water?
that there'd be 25 people of non-transient every day, and the police station will not have 25 people in the building every day.
So we don't have any plans over the course of the next 20 years to have 25 people in that building?
Well, DEP will not regulate a public water supply well unless you meet the threshold. We contacted DEP and they told us not, they would not look at it that way. They wanted us to go as a non-public water supply well.
Is it when it's built, or is it when there's 25 people in the building?
When there's 25 people in the building, but it has to be every single day, 300, or I think it's for 60 days. And based upon the operations now, they won't meet that criteria.
Yeah, so there's non-transient or transient. Transient would be people in and out. So you've got business with the police department today, and that's the only time you're in the police department. You're transient. So non-transient is the police chief and the average number of officers on each shift, which I think Dennis, when we added them up last week, he was at like 10 non-transients in the building, and then add in a dispatcher, add in a secretary. He's not even at half of 25 non-transients in the building every day. And as Jeff said, and I verified on other projects, it's, you know, at the moment you get the approval. So it'll be a while before you get that many non-transients in the building, if ever.
Robert Nudelmacher. I see that you did dig holes on the site. Was DigSafe notified?
Yes.
And there was no response at all from Magnolia?
From Buckeye?
The work was, the holes were excavated by the DPW, and DPW called in DigSafe. We waited the requisite 72 hours before we dug, and as part of the DigSafe process, the member utility companies typically do not reach out and call you. They simply are required by law to mark the utilities on the site.
If I may add something to that, when you call DigSafe, they also say there are other member utilities in the area that we do not contact, and you have to do your due diligence and contact them. I have a DigSafe number, I call them whenever I need to, and that's what they tell you.
Okay.
So you, as the person digging it, is responsible if there is someone else in the area that DigSafe does not contact. Because usually they contact Verizon, Nextel, NT&T, you know, National Grid, things like that. But a pipeline, they do not normally do. That's why those signs that we were talking about are there for that purpose. So if you DigSafed it, and even if you called DigSafe, the pipeline company was never notified. unless you purposely called them for that purpose.
Doesn't sound like, to me, like that happened.
Yeah, so he said DPW, Sutton DPW is the one who did the dig safe number. They pulled the ticket and they did the excavation.
So, my comment to you, Jeff, resonates with what you've heard from a
Yep.
couple people in the audience. DPW doesn't typically dig other than on the town's property. You need to find out where that pipe is.
I think it's a liability on the part of the town. Town owns the property. It needs to be shown, and it needs to be positively identified. I would agree.
And well, and make sure there's no additional requirements that can affect the price of this project.
Jeff, you were the inspector on Rebecca Lane when I built that, right? So,
Yeah, I didn't inspect it,
well, you were.
but I did the peer review, yes.
Yes, okay, so you remember
Yes.
to a point what I
Yes.
had to do for that.
That is correct.
So,
That is
and
correct.
all that was going across it, which is
That is correct.
similar to what you're doing here.
Comments, questions?
I still have a lot of questions whenever the need arises, so.
We were looking at these plans earlier, and did you explain why there's different views of numbers of garage doors? Did I miss something?
The
Didn't that-
elevations is what he's talking about.
Okay.
The elevations
Right.
don't match the site plan,
So,
or at least today's elevations.
right,
Last
so
one's did.
the architectural plans as the base bid has is just the sally port,
Just one.
which is just one
That is not.
here,
Oh,
which
okay.
is the base bid.
That's the base
Then the
bid.
two alternates will be the other, next sally port and then the garage.
Okay.
What I explained to Jen to clarify is the original planning submission included renderings that showed
All of
the
them.
elevations with all of them, and then the only request from the last meeting was to clarify the height of the elevations of the building, so we submitted the plan with the elevations in it, not the entire full package.
Okay. Because this has a budget, and you're trying to see what the bids would come in at.
That's correct.
Right, so we planned three different alternates, one where we add a second bay of sally ports, one where we add a vehicle maintenance and processing garage with a couple of offices off of that for the processing officer, and then one where the base bid of the carport goes from a traditional roofing system to a solar panel roofing system.
Okay.
My question to Chief Toll. Do you typically service vehicles at the police station now?
No, the only service, well, generally, our maintenance, our general maintenance is done by a garage, but with regard to service, the only type of service we'd be doing on vehicles is radio repair, minor stuff for the inside of the cruisers, occasionally tire repairs if there's a flat or something like that, so.
So, in one of these options, if you will, there's a repair bay.
It's vehicle processing and maintenance, so it's more used for when they impound a vehicle to process it for evidence. It's a secure location where they can store that vehicle.
In the back?
Who's designing the septic system?
We did.
You're using the old perk test for when the Blue Jay reconstruction was planned?
But when the Board of Health, that's what they told us to use. We did do a test pit down here. They actually didn't, when the original Blue Jay went in, they did not do test pits, though they did test pits, but didn't use them. They actually used a sieve analysis for that. We actually did a couple exploratories down here the other day when we were on site and found the material. We wanted to confirm the high groundwater, and we also wanted to confirm the soils. And the soils were consistent with what was shown in the lab report from when the Blue Jay restaurant went in. There was actually two separate septic systems that were designed for the one for when the Blue Jay went in, or when the Blue Jay was still in operation before it burnt, and then one after when the new plan came in for the, was it a restaurant or a pub or a
Restaurant.
retail?
We did get an email from your site person today that said, confirmed the highway was out there doing different testing, so Shelley Holtgren asked them to do 2 test pits in the area of the leach field. What I found was consistent for seasonal high groundwater, previously 40 inches, ME 36 inches, so 7 foot of separation of groundwater is being provided. The sea layer was clean, somewhat fine, loose sand, very little silt. She notes that I'm not sure why 2 sieves have been previously done in the leaching area, but my estimate is that it would perk at a less than 5-minute inch. The current design will be submitted tomorrow. It is designed on the sieve test for the equivalent loading rate as that of a 30-minute per inch perk, so we have a safety factor built in by default.
Can I comment on that? There's no way in hell there's 5-minute soil on that site anywhere that's virgin. No way in hell.
Maybe higher or lower.
It's all 30-minute soil, you know, this.
That whole area.
The whole area
30-minute.
is 30 to 45-minute soil. It's all clay. When she said whatever she just said about sand and 5-minute material,
That's been imported.
that is a blatant misrepresentation of what that part of town has. Blatant misrepresentation.
I'm sure it's not a misrepresentation of what she saw, but.
It's what
Was the-
Clean,
misrepresentation
somewhat
of,
fine, loose sand.
yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
So what do all those numbers mean? I don't know what you're talking about.
The septic system's being designed utilizing the same perk information from before, is that the 30 minutes an inch. That's what they had used previously, and it was done by the lab, by a lab. It gave us the 30 minutes an inch, and that's what the Board of Health told us to use. out here.
Oh, I don't doubt the Board of Health told you to use it. I'm just disputing the fact that I do not agree with the results of what was brought to that lab by a third party who had an interest in bringing it, the good stuff, to the lab.
Yeah,
Okay, which was the previous owner who wanted to develop the site. He's not gonna bring them garbage.
Yeah, there's actually 2 separate lab reports at 2 separate times,
Mhm.
and they both were consistent. And then one was brought by previous owners.
Do you have the one from 2009,
Whatever the Board of Health gave us, I don't know which ones we have, to be honest.
before the Blue Jay burnt? It was either 7 or 9.
Yeah, we have the one both from when the Blue Jay burnt, and then we have
G&H
the
design?
before that, and then we have the one after.
Do you have the one G&H designed, or just the one from the repairs in 1990 from Teach Out or something?
No, we have the ones from, I thought it was from Coyle, but I maybe, or Quinn, I'm not sure which. I think we have both.
Okay.
But Quinn did some work out here also,
Oh,
prior to,
okay.
so we have both of those. We
In
do
my
not have,
truck.
we do not have the ones from Teach Out.
In my truck, I have a design for the Blue Jay done for the Economos when they owned it by Garrier and Howland. And I believe it has all the test results on there for the deep holes that they did at the time. And I would be very interested to compare their notes with yours or with what you're saying is there.
That's fine. I mean, because we have, we have whatever the Board of Health gave us.
Right. Why don't you, right next door is Mosier's property. I did a septic system there in the 90s. Go look that up. That's within 50 feet or 75 feet of where you're proposing to do that septic. Why don't you see what was a perk rate there for their repair, for their groundwater? It's not gonna change that much in that 50 feet. And I think you'll find that it's a hell of a lot different than what you say is there.
And if I think I know what that looks like, the elevation difference
You're
between
getting my
that
point.
and
Yes.
people you're talking about is substantial.
Correct. There's quite a bit of discrepancy from what I think is there and what is shown on that plan in my mind.
And so if we put this in,
I'm not telling you it's not gonna,
We're gonna
it's
have
gonna
a-
fail or it's gonna work, okay? I don't know what they use for gallonage or load calcs, long-term acceptance rate, blah, blah, blah. It all has a factor in it. That's what he gets paid to design. I get paid to put them in. He gets paid to design.
he puts the stamp on them.
Yeah.
Earlier in the conversation, I believe there was a comment about 7 feet of separation. What is the minimum separation?
4, between the bottom of the field and
Groundwater.
groundwater.
4 feet, state of Massachusetts.
That's correct. This is 7 mainly because of the elevation of the building. We brought that building up, and then with the elevations, and we end up with about a 7-foot difference between seasonal high groundwater and the bottom of the leach
So
field.
this will still be a gravity system or?
Yes, no, it's gravity.
It's all gravity. There's roughly a 20% slope, if I remember correctly, on the finished grade over the system,
That is correct.
right?
So the system steps
Yep.
down. It's a Presby system, and it will step down. Yes.
Presby system, step down, rubber impervious barrier on the bottom.
On the side.
Yeah, on the bottom.
Yep, yeah, yep, on the downhill side, that's
Yep.
correct.
Okay. You know, no doubt that, yes, you'll have a lot of volume in the 7-foot offset from groundwater with your sand, et cetera. But the long-term acceptance rate of what is below that sand, do you have any idea how far down you went with the town when you were there?
I wasn't there.
Well, when.
I do
your
not.
represent-
I do not. I can find
When
out.
we dug the test pits, we dug about 10 to 12 feet down.
And it was all just pure sand, like
Yes.
they're saying?
Yep.
Yes.
We dug 4 test pits down in that lower part of the site, between there and the wetlands line, and they were all fairly similar.
I find that hard to believe.
I have pictures.
Yeah,
If you'd
well,
like to look at them.
I think what he's saying, and I would agree, is very inconsistent with the area around it. Very inconsistent. So,
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons we're going with the 30 minutes an inch perk for the septic and not going to less than 5. Just because the rest of the area is correct, is not very, it's fairly poor.
What was a gallon is calcs at, you know? DEP has a formula, 50 gallons per square foot or per 1,000 square feet or per bedroom, bathroom, or however you do it.
Uh, 1,047 gallons per day. So it's based upon jail cells, classroom seats, office space, lockers with showers, etc. So it's broken out into different.
And each one has a value of
That's
so
correct.
much.
That's correct.
And it amounts to just over 1,000 gallons,
Yep.
1,050.
Yep. That's correct.
I have a lot of questions, if I can keep going, or anybody else, you tell me. This is not my meeting, it's yours.
It's a public hearing, and if.
Actually, I do have a question, because when we started this process, we had a conversation about the size of this building compared to the size of the current building, police. Can we just verify that number?
Yeah, when I spoke last time, I had said that 2,500 was our current space.
Right.
That was just for the first floor. The current floor that we have our dispatch operation in, a small break area, and the few offices upstairs. If you take a look at the field card that comes from the assessor's office, the main work area of the police station will include the garages and the basement, which we also utilize, is a little over 5,700 square feet.
Okay.
In addition, if you add in, we have probably I'd say 10 by 10 or a 10 by 15 area and a closet in the library that we utilize our 911 equipment to store in, and a 10 by 20 Connex box that we currently use for storage in the back of the police station. You're roughly around 6,500 square feet.
Okay.
I had stated originally that it was 2,500 in mind, that was the work area that we use the most, so.
Fair enough.
I'm glad that was clarified.
Yeah.
A lot of your comments, I did a little quick math, and I'm like, you guys are going for 5.5 times
Right,
the
yeah,
space?
Exactly, right.
Wouldn't the building fit better on the lot if it was smaller? We've got issues with it being built within the buffer zone to the wetlands. We've got challenges with going around that carport and driving. We've got challenges with snow placement. I have to say, I think that where they're putting the snow in some places is gonna cause a problem. Can we talk about making it smaller?
The size of the building was based on a process of doing programmatic needs with the police department. So they identified the functions that were required, and that resulted in a programmatic area. There are 2 alternates that affect the square footage of the building in the proposal. So from that standpoint, those are programmatic needs that the department could conceivably live without if the budget constrains them. Beyond that, I feel like the department gave us a good representation of what their needs are. There's a lot of stuff we do. I've done police stations now for 30 years, and I can tell you the change from where you're at to where you're going is fairly common, and that's because there's so many different things that affect the square footage. Primary is the things that you don't have currently. You don't have a training room where you can sit the police force and do trainings, and where you can even host trainings so that you can get more training opportunities for your agency. The cell block area, there's been a lot of changes in the kinds of square footage requirements that are needed to make sure that you're safely handling prisoners. That's a big deal. Communications equipment has been another area, the dispatch areas, the consoles, the backbone equipment, all of that is big. Evidence storage areas have grown substantially in the years that I've been doing this. And quite frankly, many departments that are in older buildings are operating with less than adequate interview facilities, because interview rooms are one of the first things that get snatched away when a new office space or new equipment space is needed. So this program represents capturing all of those functional needs and carrying them out into the future. Yeah, we have some extra space for extra lockers in the basement. We do have a fitness room. It's a modest fitness room in the facility. But in general, these are the programmatic needs that came from your agency.
If I could just speak on that, when Jeff speaks of the programmatic design, I personally was involved in that, and I considered that probably one of the most important things that I would do in this building process. Like I explained to you last week, I don't design police stations, I don't build them, I don't do feasibility studies. All of this is all jargon to me. But what I can tell you is, I work in a police department. I am a police officer, and I have been for a number of years. It wouldn't take me long to bring you next door and show you the 7,000 square feet that we currently work in. And I really think it'd be worth your time to take me up on that offer. Just in planning this building, things that we are currently required to do, for instance, like we cannot house a juvenile in one of our cells. Right now, we have no room to put a juvenile. We had 2 juvenile issues over the weekend where we had to pretty much babysit these kids in lieu of putting them in a jail cell. We don't currently have that. These are all needs that we need to have. In order to be a professional accredited police department, you have to meet a lot of needs, and I know Jeff can speak on this better, but to even begin that process at this point would be an act of futility, because our current facility is just, it would never meet those standards. I especially want to point out that, when we considered this process, we didn't just wake up one day and say, we want a 14,000 square foot building because that's what we think we deserve. We don't deserve anything. We want a building to work out of that's professional and modern. And we relied on the people that do this every day. And this is what they came up with. I sort of take a little resentment in the fact that some people are pointing the finger saying, they don't need this building, it's too big, I don't know, maybe you're right. But I'm relying on professionals who do it every day for a living, and this is what they came up with. I'm relying on the 13 or so other police departments that we visited that were built within the last 10 to 20 years, and this is what they came up with. Not everyone can be wrong here. I think when you look at the disparity between what we have and what we will get, before you make any comparison, you need to come next door with me and take a little tour. And if the people on this board or the people in this audience has not done that, you're kind of speaking out of turn a little bit, because I need you to see what we currently work in. And then I can compare to you, like, here's our current booking room, it's so big, but here's the one that's proposed. You know, I don't want to shoot the messenger, and I really appreciate people's comments and concerns, because like I said originally, I'm a taxpayer here too. And I don't want to be represented with a building that people are going to point the finger at and say, oh, they built this big Taj Mahal. That's not the way we operate over there. You know, we've done a lot with the building over there now. We've remodeled it ourselves a number of times. We've gotten donations. We've never asked anything from the community. We've done a lot with what we've had. And this is our opportunity to build a great building for the whole entire community. And we want to do it right, and we want to do it once. And I have faith in these people. I have faith in the boards, and frankly, I'm a little bit excited over all this interest in it. But before you do anything, comparison to comparison, you need to come take a tour. And I can certainly point out our current workspace.
No, I hope you didn't misunderstand
No,
where it's
no.
going. It's not that we don't think you deserve a new facility, because you do need some huge improvements over what you have.
I hate the word deserve. We don't deserve anything.
It's needed more than
It's needed.
deserved.
Exactly.
Right,
We
right.
need, like,
Yeah.
honestly, like, if you know any members of my department, they don't deserve anything, and they'll tell you that. Like, we work, we have a job, we get paid.
Yeah.
It's up to you people to rely on us, and it's up to us to be professional and do what we're supposed to do and get paid for. We do not deserve it. We need it, yes, but I want to be clear, I want to be 100% clear with the people in the audience and the people on this board and the people here today that, like, yeah, it's a big building, but I really look at these plans, and I think we're good. I think this is what we need. And yeah, it's double the size. It's probably a little bit more than double the size, but man, if you see what we go through in a weekend, I wish I could have had a couple of you in our pockets this weekend. I think you would agree with us that, yeah, we need a modern building. And I open that up, I'll hang around to the end of this meeting, and I'll bring you right there now, and you can see exactly what we're working in and the sizes and where we're going with it.
Well, towards that, just as a question on this line, are there issues with this current facility that potentially gets the town in a liability lawsuit? Okay, because you don't have this, or you mistreated me because you don't have the right room or the right something or other? Is that the kind of thing that is possible if we continue with the current facility?
There's definite exposure for the
Okay.
community based on the facilities that you work with now.
Okay.
So, Chief,
Yes.
when I made a call last week and your officers were there in less than 5 minutes, I applaud your department. I always have. This site, in my eyes, some of the challenges that we're talking about tonight, I go back to the question that I had when the town wanted to buy this for a police station. There's very little development that'll happen in the West Sutton area, and that's where this station ends up being closest to. To me, looking at the plans, you're narrowing driveways to stay away from a wetland. You've got things that are in very close to setbacks, parking. All of these things bring me back to the first question I had. Is that really the best site in town? Or is it the only site the town owns that fits right now? My personal opinion, right from the town meeting when we bought this site, was that's not where the police station belongs. I have no problem with a new police station. I still don't think that's the ideal location.
I agree.
So,
Yeah, and you know, I think anybody can agree where our current location is. That's probably not where it belongs. You know, all you gotta do is just hang around here for a morning or an afternoon or an evening and see us leaving the station or people coming in and out, but, you know, I remember back, I built a house and it's different, but there's no perfect lot, there's no perfect, you know, I don't think there is, and I think, I really believe that the town has done their due diligence in this site. I don't think it was a knee-jerk reaction in choosing to build here, and I think if we see the project through the way it's designed, I think at the end of the day, we're gonna have a great building on a great site. That's my personal feeling, so.
What do you do 20 or 30 years from now when you want to build that on, when you need a bigger police station? Okay? No, really, I mean, no, you can't, legally, I could not put that building there. If I came before this board, I legally could not do what you guys are proposing to do on that lot. With offsets to wetlands, parking in buffers, etc. I can't do that, okay?
Well, my understanding of the wetlands is it's within the
25 feet,
requirement.
25 feet, no,
That's a whole
no
nother separate,
disturb.
that's a whole nother, because that isn't a requirement, it's not part of the wetlands bylaw.
It's one of the town's bylaws.
No, it's not. It's actually a policy that the board follows on occasion.
On occasion,
On
okay,
occasion.
okay.
Or maybe semi-consistent. So which tells me, like, it actually blows my mind, because I work in a world where, like, we follow.
Black or white.
Right, and for, you know, I'm not gonna speak on what I think of that, but, you know, we're within that 25 feet, which is acceptable, in my opinion.
And that's, the part of my problem is that you're setting a precedent for when I come, or he comes, that now somebody else can do
Right.
that.
And I wanna be clear with everybody too, that there's no collusion here, right? I mean, it's not like, you know, the police department imported some sand down by the Blue Jay last
No,
year.
no, I am not saying that, okay?
No, but I
Okay?
mean, you know, sometimes a little knowledge is dangerous. And I feel, and I'm very guarded with our reputation and our integrity, and I don't, and I want to stomp it out now that there's been no collusion here.
No one is
I mean-
even alluding to the collusion, okay?
You
So,
need to like
Just-
try to
we gotta-
step back.
Take a
Please
breath,
don't feel
relax.
like we're like, you've got the torch.
No, but listen, I mean, it's.
Shouldn't even be on this
It's
topic.
heightened to me because it's our reputation, and when you suggest that, geez, that's not consistent with the soil that's brought there.
It's not.
Well, maybe it's not, but I don't know enough to tell you that, yeah, that soil's been there for 30 years, but what I do know is like, I
It was
gotta-
there last week.
Well, it was there when they dug it up.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Gentlemen,
So,
the discussion has gotten off of planning, more toward Board of Health,
Yep.
conservation.
we'll continue the
And
discussion.
I think we
Comes
need
over
to,
for the
I think we
tour.
need to come back to the planning board's jurisdiction here.
I have a lot more of those questions too.
Okay.
Jeff, can you tell me how CB number 4 works?
Catch basin, for those who aren't in the building.
Sorry.
That was my question.
I'm gonna say it's a typo, but.
CB number 4,
Rim invert pipe size, please.
it's a 12-inch HDPE with a rim of 494.8 and an invert of 493.8.
Okay. 12-inch,
So actually, it's been revised. This is an older plan, so it has been revised. Oh, I'm
well,
sorry.
that's the ones I looked at today that was sent, yeah, Friday,
Actually,
okay?
yeah, so today, when we revised this here, these are incorrect. I know that this one is incorrect.
Well, I would hope it's incorrect.
This one, CB 3 has to be revised because of the ways the configuration has been done, as does CB 5. Those three, along with the site lighting, because the site lighting still reflects the old layout configuration. So we did this just to show, schematically show what this is gonna be. Then we have to come back and look at this one. I don't like the location now, these are sort of more in the gutter line, I want these out, those manholes out of the gutter line. So we'll move it back. We retained the western edge and moved everything 8 feet this way. So this has to change, this one has to change, and then these will probably move this way.
CB number 5, what are the changes for that?
I think it's just gonna be a rim elevation. We got a comment from Jeff Walsh about this yard
There you
drain,
go.
the elevation, so.
The cellar floods before it crests over.
This is a slab, there's no cellar here, this is a slab.
Water goes onto the slab before it crests over.
Right, yeah, right this location, so we're looking at that right there. based on Jeff's comments today.
It's more just, you want the water pitching away from the
That's correct.
building at the yard.
Right, so this is a yard drain here, this is lower, about a foot and a half lower than the building.
3/4. 0.75 by the plans I looked at today.
Correct. Yeah, so we're looking at that, we're doing that as a beehive too.
And just in terms of elevation on the opposite corner, like, so if you just draw a line across the building in the L on the other side, right in the elbow, right there. Just check the elevation there too, because it looks like a low point against the
It's
building.
a flat, so actually, it will pitch this way, but it's, because of this doorway right here, it does pitch this way, but it's about half, 3/4% from this corner to that catch basin.
Yeah, and that was the thing on, just a lot of the grading, it all, except for that one point where it looked lower than the two sides, so it looked like it was pitching towards the building.
Here, yeah,
There's really, there's some spots that are just so close, and and when you actually go to do construction, if they're that close, sometimes it's tough to make sure it works.
So the same thing with here, once we took out this island here, that's what we're addressing this. So with this, we're retaining this gutter line that comes around, and that catch basin that is actually here.
Great.
So everything will pitch to that catch basin.
Yeah. So we just need to be careful with those grades right up against the building, so
Correct.
we can make sure we're sheeting away and not.
That's correct. Yeah, so I know about that one.
In the front of the building, some of the grades that you have there are to within an eighth of it, or a tenth, or a hundredth, I mean, which is an eighth of an inch.
Oh,
Look at the front door area,
yep.
okay? You have 582.2, 587.9, 5.79, I mean, which is 2 100ths, 3 100ths in 20 feet.
So basically what we have at the front door, we have a 1%, or I think it's either 1.5% pitch out to the handicap ramp. I do not have any curb line here, along here.
It's, I
Because of,
believe it's 3 inches, or, 0.25 or something like that. In, how long is that, 15 feet?
no, it's 8 or 9 feet.
Okay, all right, okay. So,
Yeah, it's a 1.5-inch pitch from the front door out, and then because of the handicap here, and the way it's offset from the front door, this whole thing is flush, and then in order to meet the handicap here, so we have handicap from here to here, and so we don't get the cross pitch on the sidewalk.
it just looks to me like water's gonna run in there, in a
Yeah,
bad storm.
and then from here to here is, it's either like 1.5, depending on how it pitched, but this all heads in this direction, so that we don't have the greater than 2% pitch in this from here to here, but it does pitch 2% from here to here. So this might be 1.5 or whatever that ends up
All
being.
right. Can you explain to me how the 2 cars in that upper parking lot, the public parking area, the ones closest to Putnam Hill Road, right there, that one and the one below it, how do they get out of there?
Back into here?
That turning radius, I think, is 5 feet?
That's correct. That's
Back
correct.
distance.
Parking,
correct.
whatever.
That's correct.
That doesn't seem like you could even get in and out of there. Has anybody dragged a template over this for turning radiuses?
Yeah, I mean, this is for just normal cars, and that should be able to make that turn.
Should be, or have you dragged a template over it and it works?
There's no templates for
That's
doing
funny.
that. No.
I just did one in Millbury and Worcester, and there was a template that they had for me to use.
That's correct, but
Okay.
that's really for on and off ramps for that speed. This is slow.
This was in my parking room. Yeah, I mean, 3 months ago, I just went through a 10,000 square foot building, site plan review with Millbury and Worcester,
We'll look at that.
and there was templates for all of it.
This is the industry standard for the width is 5-foot back out.
And you have the distance from end of parking to end of parking, that 24-foot strip in the middle is,
That's correct, that's standard.
okay.
That's correct. And the spaces are the town standard.
Yeah, the spaces are 9 by 18. You don't have any compact spaces or anything?
That's correct.
Okay.
2 handicapped and then the one
Yep.
safe space.
Yep. Your proposed changes to the drainage, existing drainage from Central Turnpike in that intersection, are you aware that that area floods and those drains do not take all the water that is there?
So we're not changing any of the drains out in Central Turnpike or Putnam Hill.
Yes, but is anyone aware that they flood and that they don't take all the water? And is it because the pipes going to them are undersized? Has anyone looked at that?
No,
Okay.
no. But the overall slope from here to the existing manhole is being retained. So
When
by
you,
changing the material of the pipe and by changing the slope, we retain that same, whatever's coming in there now.
correct.
By hydraulics, still is the same flow rate.
So when you're done, it'll still flood in the street? That's what you just said?
Up-
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay.
So to Marty's question, where does the flood water end up because water runs downhill, and I believe this station will be downhill? The second question I have is, and I haven't seen the plans as close as obviously you have, if that parking area is that close to being flat, do we ever get ice and snow buildup on asphalt? I think I remember having it,
Yep.
and it will build 2 to 3 inches of hard pack. I think,
So, other than handicap spaces, which have the maximum slope of 2% in any one direction, everything else, all these will pitch it, are at 2%, and then there's at least, I believe, 2% from here this way. So 2% is not, they're not flat. The only spot
You
that's
need
a
1%
little
to get
bit.
water to run, so.
That's correct. So,
Okay.
so other than the handicap spaces, which statutorily can't go any more than 2%, the problem is the 2% is from here to this corner. So inherently, this is slightly less than 2, might be, I think it's 1.5 or so in that. Everything else is at 2% to that catch basin over in this corner here. And then here, from here down is actually steeper as we get toward the intersection.
Your alteration to the existing drainage is there, where you're rerouting whatever you're rerouting and putting in a storm scepter.
Yes,
Where that discharges, you're not changing the location, correct?
that's correct.
Okay. Has anyone walked out there and looked and saw the erosion that is happening there?
Yes.
Is
So-
there anything on that plan that you're gonna try to mitigate that?
Yeah, so we're putting a riprap channel in here.
Is that on the plan?
Uh,
Because I didn't see one today.
It should be, that was at the request of Jeff and the commission. But there is one going on, if it's not there, it's going on, that's Jeff's comments also.
Okay.
And we actually sized, and this one's a little smaller than what actually.
All right, so going back to that one, seeing how you just brought that up,
Talking about.
your discharge from your proposed
Yes.
drainage, okay? If you look at that, could you put that sheet up there, please?
You want this one?
Sure, that's fine, either one that shows that riprap area when you discharge.
Yeah.
To me, that looks like in high volumes of water, that's gonna sheet flow right onto the neighbor's property. Wouldn't it be prudent to have some sort of grass swale or extend the drainage swale so that it goes to where you want it to go, not possibly the neighbor's property?
It's being directed to where we met with the commission, and that's where their agent suggested. Currently, there's an existing catch basin over here somewhere in the old parking lot. It actually drains this way, drains to this point over here on the abutter's property.
So,
That's
so
where-
what you're telling me, the abutter has no problem with you potentially putting more water on their property?
No, we're getting rid of this one
Correct.
and moving it to here, into this channel that's here,
But there's
into
a-
this stream here.
There's a big difference from the water from one manhole and the water from that whole site. Okay?
That is correct.
All right, yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Currently, the water is, some of it comes up here.
And that is
Into
from the
this channel
street.
here?
That is the stuff. from
No,
the-
there's actually 3 right here.
Correct. There's a 4-inch drain that came from the building.
Correct.
And there's another one for an existing manhole that was in front of the dairy bar.
Which is up here.
No, it
Oh,
was in front of,
okay, the one
it
in
was
the
in
old- in the
front
old
of when
parking
it
lot.
was the Blue Jay.
That's
There's one
correct.
there, that goes into that hole also,
That's correct.
okay?
That's
Yes, I
correct.
understand that, but I'm not talking about up there, I'm talking about down below with the neighbor's
Here.
property or the potential of putting more water on someone else's property.
So this is being directed to the stream that's
Uh,
here, which is right here.
Explain to me how it's being directed if you're just dumping it out onto a riprap area.
So it's going like this,
Correct.
into that.
And if you look at the contour lines you have there, it all heads downhill right towards that property.
Which is where it goes now. That's where the existing flow goes now.
No.
This
you're-
and this.
The flow does not go there. You're changing where that goes. You're proposing the whole site's drainage to come out right there.
Before it came out here,
Correct.
and then went this,
Yeah, but now
it's bringing here and here. So it's the
okay,
same.
so you're telling me the same amount of water is gonna end up in the same place?
Yes,
That's what you're saying?
that's correct.
Actually, our engineer is suggesting less,
That's correct.
because there's less impervious surface.
By .14 acres or something like that.
is correct.
It is not a lot.
But it is
That is
a
correct.
reduction.
That is
So
correct.
his
It's-
logic is that it will be less of an
Reduction.
impact coming off the site.
And because this is redevelopment, is that the correct word?
That is correct.
That is why you're bypassing the detention basin and a 4-bay and all that stuff, and all you're doing is putting in a couple storm scepters?
So the storm scepters and the deep sump catch basins meet our TSS removal?
85% or greater,
That's correct.
yeah. Which, if I looked at your stormwater management, it was 86.5 or 85.9.
Whatever that was out to
It
be.
was over, yeah.
The detention, because we're decreasing the flow, inherently, the amount of runoff is less than there is now.
By a small amount,
That
I
is
will
correct.
give you that,
That is correct.
albeit a very small amount.
Can't argue that.
Yep.
And because aren't required to do recharge, again, because we're have less impervious than we had before.
Because it's redevelopment.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But in
That's a
theory,
good-
we don't
that's a
have to
good
meet,
thing to hang
we don't
your
have to do
hat on.
TSS removal, we just have to meet a minimal extent of practical, but we elected to put the full 80% removal.
Okay.
And again, same thing with the runoff that's coming off the street.
Yep.
So you're not doing what you would do for a new virgin site, but you're doing
Right.
what's allowed within the regulations.
That is correct. We originally, to be honest, we originally were gonna put detention here, then when we started doing the math,
And you don't have any room for it anyways.
we were gonna do some, either underground over here, or we were gonna do something. We would've come up with something to do.
Yep.
Can I read this?
How big are the cisterns?
That's from Graves.
There's no detail on the sheet that shows anything about it.
No, because it's shown on the mechanicals.
Your fire protection.
It's a fire protection, so they're on the mechanical
But
drawings.
wouldn't you have, proposed 6 2,500 gallon tanks or
No,
something
they're
like
not
that?
installed by the site, they're run by
Installed by the
mechanical.
fire protection installer.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know offhand.
Okay,
I
Jeff,
have all
Jeff, I have a member of the board that would like to read some comments from Graves.
I just want to read a comment from Graves,
Yep,
which is,
go ahead.
which is germane to your point you're making. No pre-development hydrology analysis has been submitted. GEO, which is Graves Engineering, concurs that this project results in a decrease in impervious area. As such, an inherent reduction in peak runoff rates is likely, and the preparation of a pre-development hydrology analysis would not be beneficial. That's the engineer that we pay.
Right.
We pay for that
The other engineer.
opinion, okay? That's
Yeah.
And so, do we agree with that? That's what you would agree
That's
with.
correct.
Yeah, and I mean,
Do you think that's valid,
to a
Marty?
point, yes, I do believe it is valid. The reduction in square footage of whatever it is, yes. And I do believe Jeff concurred that it is a very small amount of water that the area has been decreased by. In my mind, it's not good.
Just a minor point, he did also earlier on indicate that he's decreasing the amount of pavement further, so there will be a slight increase.
Yeah,
By that-
1,000 square feet with his.
The reduction of
Right.
the width of the,
So, Jeff, do you know how many square feet the original Blue Jay was for roof watershed? And with the canopy, which will shed water, how much roof space and canopy space do we have that's shedding water on this site?
Isn't that all part of your calculation?
Yeah, offhand, I don't know exactly, I mean, I could come up with the size
Do
of
we
the
have
building.
Do we have more roof shed or less roof shed than the building that was there?
Are you picking up the roof drains for the canopy? Are there any there?
There are not.
Or not.
Is there a reason? I'm just asking, maybe.
really just, it just runs off, it just
Correct. It's a roof.
peels off them. There's a slope to that roof?
Yes.
Chief, my understanding is a canopy is solar
That's
cover?
one of the ad.
That's an ad,
alternates,
that's
so-
an ad feature.
Okay. So, would it be solar panels forming the canopy? Or would it be a roof with panels on top of it.
So the base bid is a steel structure, and it would have metal decking with with a standard EPDM style roof on there, rubber roofing. That would pitch to the south of the site. I believe it's either, I think it's 4 and 12, could be 2 and 12. Can't recall off the top of my head. The alternate is to replace that and install steel purlins and mount the PV panels directly to the purlins.
So then the water would run between panels.
That-
And the
that's what-
surface underneath is asphalt or?
Yes.
For the
Yeah,
PV
it's
panel roof, there's nothing underneath it except the steel
No,
structure.
underneath.
No, it's asphalt.
On the ground.
Asphalt.
On the ground.
Oh, yes,
With
that's
cars in between and the stuff falling on the cars and that type of thing, right?
Okay.
We just had an
So I
application
just-
for a large farm, and that's exactly how they did that. There's no
Yeah,
roof
great.
at all.
Yeah, and the cars just go between the supports, so they're fully covered by the panel, and the rain runs off on each side of the vehicle.
So I think once they're storing, that's over their storage yard, right?
Yeah, well, they have vehicle parking too.
And some
Storage
parking.
and vehicle parking.
John had a question?
So do these plans here, or their plans that have been reviewed, are they the plans that reflect the updates that come from Graves Engineering?
Yes.
They do.
Minus a few things we have to change over in this location here, which we did today. So we just, like a catch basin rim, or the invert, we have to
Was
move
that,
things a
was that
little
an
bit.
oversight, or?
We just wanted to, technically, the plans that we had submitted, but we were gonna go with, but then when conservation, we talked to the chief about reducing the width, and we got confirmation to do that, so we quickly showed, just so we could show that the new alignment of the road. So I gotta go back and check a couple of these. Technically, the drainage calcs have to slightly change.
I haven't
And
seen
then
them at
other
all.
small little
We don't
things,
have them
or
down
things
here.
that were picked up today,
That's Wally.
that we didn't pick up until, I didn't pick up
I've not
until
seen
some
them.
of them were pointed out today, and then when I was looking at the plans closer, there were some of those grades where it appeared to pitch back towards the
Yeah.
building a little bit, or it was just way too close and really should get
We can,
adjusted.
yeah, I can add more spot grades.
Has the order of conditions been generated from conservation?
No,
I
No.
don't believe so.
no.
Jen, we don't seem to have a copy of the waivers that are being requested?
They were given to you at the last meeting as part of your package.
Right here.
They're in this today?
They did it June 15, 2017, 2 pages.
I can give you Marion.
You were at your last meeting.
I think it's in my packet.
It's kind of,
So when
Yeah, we do
you're,
have them.
typically when you're done with hearing the bulk of any new commentary, you can decide if you can feel comfortable addressing any of the waivers, because obviously whether you vote for or against some of the waivers will affect the ultimate design. So you want to address as many of those as you can, and then I would suggest, as I do on every other project, that because there's things outstanding on the plan, and we want to make sure this is buttoned up very cleanly, and the board gives the design team final directions on any commentary they've heard and what they feel should be adjusted, that you continue to the next meeting, and that we work with the design team to make sure, you know, all the comments that have been addressed that the board feels need to be addressed are addressed, and that we have a clean, one set of plans with everything on it that you can then act on.
Right.
through the chair, and thank you, everyone, for a good hour. Part of the challenges of being on the planning board is being on schedule, so we did start, for once, on time. And I want to suggest that we, through, to the chair, we have 10 waiver requests. We can weigh in on each one of them, and maybe we'll have a couple things done tonight, but I do think we're going to go to another meeting, and I don't want to go to 11 o'clock tonight, because people stop coming.
I have enough questions to go till 11.
Yeah, I don't want you to save them. It's just right, to make the process stay smooth.
So, if I could, Marty, maybe some of your questions, we go through the waivers, see Jen They're definitely targeted toward plans, I believe, from what I've heard tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe those can be taken care of.
Well,
And I do appreciate all the knowledge that you bring into, yeah.
I mean, just one quick one is the dumpster area, okay? Usually they're in the rear of a building, out of sight, not 28 feet off of the road. And even if it is gonna stay there, how is it serviced by a garbage truck? That's why I asked you about the template being dragged over the thing. You cannot get a truck in there with the location of the carport. When you get ice and snow, it's even worse.
So the truck can pull in right here, and just the first part of the comment, based upon the grading, this sits down lower than the grades around it, there's a retaining wall around it. So in the back, it's about 4 feet lower, and then there's the fence on top, and then extensive landscaping.
Yeah.
So this should be screened both by elevation and by the landscaping, so you won't see it from Putnam Hill Road.
Okay.
Certainly way better than the current dumpster.
But I still do not believe that a truck can service that with the carport where it is. If there was 9 feet, one parking spot taken off of that, yes, possibly you'd have your turning radiuses getting out of there, but I do not believe that it can be done. And then you're talking about the grades that are there and it's sunk in the ground?
Yes.
Okay, so you also have snow storage in that area. It's really hard to put snow storage on something hard like that in that area. You can't push uphill with a loader and put snow there. Okay, it looks good on paper, but the reality is it doesn't work. A lot of the things on that site do not work, and that is the problem with it. It's like you're putting 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. We're not trying to deny you your police station. If you're gonna do it somewhere where it's right and it's being utilized correctly. That site does not fit that building, or that building does not fit that site. That's my opinion.
Let me go down.
Waivers,
All
you
right.
want to read them through? And
Yeah, and get, at least for the applicant, at least we know which way the wind's blowing on each one of them. Section 4A, 4A, size of sign. Due to the nature of the proposed use, we are requesting the maximum 20 square feet for the identification sign within an R1 zone be per the revised sign detail provided by Tecton Architects.
Do you know how big the Benjamin Insurance Agency sign is across the street? I think it's bigger than 20 square feet. I'm just thinking.
Oh, no.
I think when that sign was going to be put up, it was just a few feet over. I think the actual poles put it way beyond. Am I correct?
When we boxed it in, you know.
So,
We just want to, it's not unusual, obviously, to have our non-internally illuminated sign in the residential district, especially at this location on Central Turnpike. I just want to make sure we're in the same range in terms of size.
so what is this proposed size of the sign?
It's the same size as the insurance sign across the street.
Same size and not internally illuminated?
Correct.
External, is it
External.
illuminated at all?
It is.
Ground lit?
Ground lights.
How's the board feel? Wally?
Obviously, you're going to need some kind of identification. And,
Our intent was to keep that corner consistent with this thing.
and that would fit that general area.
Scott?
I'm trying to see what's required. 20 seems like a reasonable number in this chart that we have on page 24. They want an exemption. They're requesting a waiver from 20 feet. I guess we'd like to know how big it is or what it looks like before we...
Well, it says we're requesting the maximum 20 square feet.
They're
So are you
requesting the
just requesting
maximum.
verification as opposed to a waiver?
Yeah, what are you asking
Verification that
for?
20 square feet
I don't
is
recall off the top of my head what sizes.
allowed?
Do we have a picture of it?
It's a good thing we're going through them.
Yes.
All right.
Excuse me a minute. Nick, we had a question in the back.
Yeah, where is the sign located?
upper right.
The Putnam Hill Road, I mean, at the Central Turnpike entrance?
So it's not gonna interfere with
Visibility.
sight distance from a stop at any of the stop signs?
You look
No.
like you're 20 feet back.
Yeah, the sign itself is about 28 feet south of the actual pavement line.
Okay.
Do you want to weigh in on the sign?
I'd like to see the details.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we had sent the detail with the original waiver request. I forgot to bring it with me. Should have been attached to it, I thought.
It was part of the original.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, I don't see that you're requesting a waiver from a maximum
No,
sign
it
of
would've
20
been
feet.
hand-carried. But
That's
it
what our
would've been
bylaw
5
says.
Was on 8.5 by 11.
But it would have been attached to this, I would assume.
Ready, Wayne?
Yep.
Okay, for myself, and then we'll let the chair weigh in. I think the idea of having a sign that matches the one that Benjamin Insurance Agency makes good sense, and I believe that's 20 feet or just over, so I'd like to see the actual numbers, and if it's, as you say, similar and it matches, it makes sense to have it in a residential area, something that well done. And I think, if I remember right, the sign's right at Benjamin, it's the post that makes it too big, and I can live with that, if that's what makes it go over the 20 feet. But that doesn't mean it should be 50 feet.
Well, obviously, the sign design is not gonna, I mean, if you're gonna do a straw poll, you know, that you're okay with that, that's not gonna affect the overall design of the site. So
I think I'm still trying to understand if it's within the bylaw, why are we looking for a,
yeah,
Right.
I think that needs to be clarified.
And nobody can give us dimensions on a sign, so I think we're gonna
Skip
skip
one.
around.
All right, number 2, section 4B3, table 5, loading spaces, adequate space within the rear parking lot designed for police use only allows for a loading space function, but not officially located or sized.
Well, you've seen this waiver about 1,000,000 times. So, and the reasoning is the same as every other time you've seen it. This site, like others you've seen it on, is only gonna be using FedEx and UPS trucks. You don't need a tractor trailer loading space, and even if you did need a tractor trailer, there's plenty of other locations on that site that a skilled tractor trailer driver could get the truck in, though not necessary.
I'm prepared to grant that motion,
Second.
but we should all weigh in. It's a no-brainer.
Well, we have a motion and a second, so is there any other comments
On loading space?
on the loading spaces?
I'm sorry, I missed it.
You missed
Bob,
I made it.
Scott, the
Oh,
vote?
Scott. Okay,
Pay attention,
slipping
Jay.
past me.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. 5-0.
Number 3, section 4B, 4I, dimension of loading spaces. Since the loading space is being requested to be waived, the dimension requirement is also being waived. I make that motion.
No, you don't
Second.
need to do that. If we waive the loading space, that goes along with it.
You went with it? Okay, good job, 2 down. Number 4, section 4B, 4K, parking within the setback. The existing parking configuration of the former Blue Jay restaurant was significantly within the setback, within the right-of-way. Significant improvements to the parking configuration is proposed, and due to the size and shape of the parcel, public parking is required to be placed within the front yard setback. Public parking wants to be in front of the building with the greatest visibility, while the separated police functions will be away from the general public and out of sight.
Can you flip to that?
Yeah, I just want to show you, so here's the existing pavement now. And the right-of-way line is here, so a very small portion of the pavement itself now is in the right-of-way. A good portion of the front of the old Blue Jay was within the setback, front yard setback.
That line's been moved. That line's been moved.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, but it-
this is the, so the old line actually was here.
Oh, there's your line, okay.
That's the old line.
Okay.
So when I say that it's in this front yard
Right of
setback,
way.
it's, yeah, well, before it was actually in the right of way.
I think the front door was in the right of way of
It was
the
just off
restaurant.
of it,
That's
just
what I
off of it.
remember, yeah.
So the situation
So with the relocated right of way line,
Right.
a good portion of the front of that building still, the parking was still within the
Yeah, that's, we signed that last.
the setback.
So the setback for the entire site is 50, is
It's
50 feet,
50
all the way around.
Well,
all
50
the way
feet
around.
in the, along Putnam Hill and Central Turnpike,
Right.
yes.
And 20 feet elsewhere, because it's a corner lot.
So the area would be, it'd be these spaces in here.
A lot of them.
That's correct.
So where's 50 feet?
50 feet is this line right here.
There it is, okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Almost to where the line was before.
right, almost.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. That is correct.
Right?
Through the chair, if that is granted, and I came in here a year from now, would you grant me the same thing?
And I've had this discussion on site after site after site, and I don't mean to be
No, go
whiny
ahead.
about it, but every site, when people say you set precedent, you only set precedent to a point. Every single site is unique, every single use is unique, every single proposal is unique. So people throw the word precedent around way too much. The fact that if precedent always held, right now, this engineer could be standing there saying, you gave a waiver to Pleasant Valley Crossing to allow parking in the front setback, because in fact, this board gave a waiver to Pleasant Valley Crossing for parking in the setback. He's not giving you that argument because he's been before a board enough to know that you cannot compare this site and this use and this previous site to Pleasant Valley Crossing. You can't. So you can, anybody can stand there and say, you gave it to him, you have to give it to me, but you better be ready, at least in front of this board, to show exactly why your request is identical to that request in terms of the site, the use, the location, and all the aspects of the site. So there's always a risk for precedent. Everybody can always ask for precedent, but the fact is, when you come up against a precedent claim, unless you're talking about fairly identical situations, you've got nothing.
So I guess the reason that they're asking for this is because they can't meet the criteria for parking any other way,
I would assume so,
okay?
because of the unique nature of the
Right.
site.
So
Absolutely.
if another petitioner came to you and said, I can't meet the criteria any other way,
Then you have to consider the use, the
Okay.
site, and
There
all
you
the
go.
particulars.
So
And
you answered
sometimes
my
it
question.
applies, and sometimes it doesn't, and it's
Okay.
always based on the particulars of the site.
another reason why it does not fit the site.
But almost every project we work on, that we look at, has
Waivers.
challenges and waivers, and we evaluate each one of them.
That's right. if
And
it
I
was
determine,
one
not
of those
based on whether it's the town or it's some individual, I base it on the evidence that they give me and the compelling argument that they give me to waive that argument. So
spots, if it was
I'm not
one of
looking
two
at this
spots, I
in a
wouldn't have
biased way,
problem.
I'm looking at this in a way of the evidence that's being provided based on that particular situation.
Okay.
Because there'd be a lot of projects here that if we didn't grant waivers, wouldn't happen.
Right, and the last approved plan by the board for this site, for the Blue Jay redo, is a perfect example. If you want to take a look at that site and see how many spaces this board approved in the setback for the remake of the Blue Jay, I'll go get the plan right now, and I guarantee you it's at least that many.
So
if
you
not
answered
more.
my question then.
One of the,
And it was that particular to that site.
Correct.
And it's past
So I'll make a
years.
motion that we request that we grant that waiver. If someone seconds it, we can have a discussion and vote.
Second.
Got a second?
other discussion.
I would like to verify you're asking the right portion of this bylaw before we approve it. I'm having troubles with the section you're calling out.
4B, 4K.
So,
What is it, wrong section?
I'm looking at this correctly. Off-street,
The number there.
you're calling out for B, 4,
Parking and circulation and stuff.
4,
You can have like
B,
Oh, I'm sorry.
B, 4K, B,
today.
4K.
4, K.
It's back in my folder, but
Probably have it.
or other devices to prevent motor vehicles from being parked or driven into the required setback area or the landscaped area.
So that's all it is. It's not about having spaces in the setback.
That's correct. It says you can't access the setback. That's correct.
Can you read that again?
The applicant may be required to provide curbing, wheel stops, or other devices to prevent motor vehicles from being parked or driven into the required setback area or the landscaped area. So to me, it's talking about things you can't drive over,
No,
not
there's-
parking in, not parking in.
No, there's a different section.
That's why I'm asking this question.
Bad. Too bad.
But it's right here, Jen. Where are you going?
Yeah, right here.
Huh?
It's right here.
You got the, well, I don't, you're looking at that, I'll grab mine.
Oh, this
My
is the
phone
wrong
right
version?
That's the only one I found that was close. Because I don't see it anywhere else.
Yeah, because I'm expecting to see words that say you can't park in a setback.
Yeah, I can't see, I don't
You don't have work when you
I can't find it.
See it.
I don't either. No, that's the only one that was close.
So here she comes. She got the official 3-ring binder.
Yeah.
All of the copies.
Yeah, I'll take it.
It's be here somewhere.
Since I made
So
since I made the motion, we can
No, it's it.
go on to the next one and maybe,
No, just hang on.
details.
We'll be all right.
can't find it?
While she's looking, if I may, we just pulled up the drawing from the documents for the sign. It's, the body of the sign itself is, it has a pediment to it, so if we were to take it as the full rectangle, it's 18 square feet. And then, I guess, is this the same situation that you had with the
Granite
insurance
post.
signage, was the granite posts, which are 4'9" by 8 inches, so that adds about 42 square, 42, what's it? 42
3.5
square inches
Square
post.
inches.
So it comes to like 26 square feet if you would take the total area.
We're jumping from 18 to 26 because of the posts? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, because of those large granite posts.
It's still within the bylaw,
Must
right?
be big. No, it says 20 feet. That's,
What's the new?
they're asking, they're
So the
asking for a
the
maximum.
sign, the sign itself
The sign itself is within.
is less than 20.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's mounted on a granite
But the
post,
support,
The granite
the
post.
granite post, take it over.
part of the sign. I think it adds to it.
And so how high is that off the ground then? And I didn't see where it was going, Jeff, on it. Couldn't see because you were
Going right here.
right there.
I believe that the base of the sign is something like 1'2", 1'4",
Off the ground.
off the ground. And then the very top of the post, I think, was 5'4", something like
Okay.
that.
And it's externally illuminated.
Correct,
Right.
from ground lights.
It's
And
1 foot,
it's
3
hand
inches.
carved with gold leaf and stuff like that.
Of course. Nothing but the
Make
best.
sure.
We like that look.
The prisoners do it. Yes, so. It could get better over time.
Get out of prevailing wage.
What do you think, Jen?
I think it's more of a waiver from the definition of yard than it is a specific provision.
Let's work on it for next meeting.
So we're gonna pass over that one until next week?
Well,
Or,
to me, it's an issue. I mean, there's, the majority of the parking for the public is in this area of discussion. Of all the ones that are on here, to me, this is the biggest one, biggest waiver.
Yeah, because I don't see a specific provision that says you can't have them in there, but if you read the definition of yard, which is the yard setback, an undeveloped, naturally vegetated or landscaped strip required per the table of dimensional regs along the full length of the lot line on the same lot as the permitted structure or use. Lying between said structure and or use in the nearest lot line, unobstructed from the ground upward, which parking doesn't violate that, but, and unoccupied except by specific structures or uses allowed by the bylaw. Said yards are intended to provide aesthetic value as well as serve as a spatial and visual buffer between lots. So I think that when they asked for the waiver on PB Crossing to have circulation and parking, I don't know.
What page are you on?
That's the definition of yard,
What page?
page 7. Because there's not a specific provision that I see that says you can't
Well,
have
mine's page
parking in the
26.
parking regs that says you can't have parking.
Jeff, how many spaces in
It
there?
says parking, she's on yard.
How does that apply to here?
But I know we granted it on that one. We granted it when we approved the last Blue Jay
12 and a half,
structure.
We can
13.
find out what
How
section
many
that
total
was.
spaces for
Granted
the
it on
public?
Valancourt's
What
Here's-
section?
bookstore.
Here's where it is. Here's where it is.
Here's
What
where it is.
On
section?
You
page
find it.
26, I'm not sure what you're looking at. I got page 26, general standards.
Ah,
Parking, maneuvering, and driveways shall not be
is.
located within the applicable front, side, and rear yard setbacks in the B2,
oh.
industrial,
Right.
and OLI.
It doesn't, it's
so
not in
don't need a
R1.
waiver.
So
So you don't
we're
need
in
a
the
waiver.
we're in the
Okay.
R1.
All right, so the applicant may be required to provide curbing, wheel stops, or other devices to prevent. So the section you referred to, you have curbing.
You have curbing, you
Right, but
have
it
the
says to
wheel.
prevent vehicles within the setback.
You-
Okay. So you don't technically,
So,
I don't think you technically.
to Marty's point, where it's in an R1,
Uh-huh.
this is kind of a commercial or type building, this wouldn't even be allowed.
Correct.
yeah,
So
Well-
schools,
It wasn't ever
libraries,
considered.
for
But
the
it's
future.
No,
because
it
it's
is-
municipal, it is allowed in an
It
R1.
absolutely
it's unique.
is, yes.
Very unique.
They have town building except equipment garage allowed as of right in the
I-
residential district.
I understand that.
So, but it says specifically, parking, maneuvering, and driveways shall not be located within the applicable front, side, and rear setbacks, as Scott read it, in the B2, which is specific districts, industrial and OLI. Driveways may go through the front yard setback to provide access.
So then it's a moot point?
Then it's moot. It looks like you're not in violation.
Okay,
It becomes the municipality.
withdraw my motion. Section, number 5, section 5, B5, landscaping provisions. Though extensive landscaping is being proposed, we are requesting a waiver from this section in its entirety. I'll make a motion that we grant that waiver so we can, and if I get a second, we can have a discussion.
I'll second it, but I'm not sure why they're requesting a waiver, since we want to see some landscaping on this parcel.
Well, I believe, just one example is that rear parking lot is over 15 spaces, and they're not providing interior lot landscaping. They're providing exterior lot landscaping. Again, you've seen this before, where people don't want to put islands in the parking lot because it inhibits snow removal. And in this case, you've got a canopy over part of this. So instead, you give the full percentage of parking if you look at it on the site as a whole, but it's not specifically interior to the parking spaces as required for the bylaw. So if you take the overall parking lot areas, and we've seen this on a lot of the industrial ones in South Sutton Commerce Park where they don't want islands in their industrial parking lot. Pleasant Valley Crossing, part of that had a waiver for this, where they just don't want the islands, but they have to include all of that percentage of landscaping on the site as a whole, just to make for maintenance to be more easy. So it does not technically meet the provisions because there's not islands inside those parking lots, but they have plenty of landscaping on the site.
But it says parking lots containing more than 15 parking spaces.
Yeah.
And so there's how
We're
many
there.
parking spaces in the
40
front and how many in the back?
17 in the back and,
Yeah.
So under the canopy is called the parking spaces.
19
under
in the
ca-
rear.
So we had this conversation with the school parking lot in reverse, where we were trying to take the islands out for maintenance, and we had to build them there anyways.
And we're proposing to build a police station in a residential area, and I think it's good, for me, I don't want it, you're in a neighborhood, so I understand you don't plant things that are gonna screw up all the conservation issues, but at the same time, you're in a residential, you owe that to the neighbors to make it not look like the current police station, which we all got used to.
Yeah.
You know, so to entirely eliminate it,
Yeah, but they're just eliminating it in the interior.
Okay. This is only to eliminate the
It's in the interior of the
landscaping in the
parking
parking
lots.
spaces.
Correct, 'cause
Yeah,
we are
they're overboard, actually.
'cause we are
on the
providing a
on
landscaping
the
plan.
exteriors.
Right, that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, they're providing more than the depth of landscaping around the edges than is required. There's about, actually totaled it up on my copy of the landscape plan, there's about 300 plus plantings on that landscape plan.
They're not
Well
gonna
over
interrupt.
Wholesale cost, well over $15,000 worth of landscaping shown on that plan, wholesale.
And they're not gonna, it's important, it's in a residential area, so we're putting something.
It's good, I'm just torn because it is a municipal site, so
Right.
I'll be interested to see how the maintenance works on that.
Yeah, no, that's, go ahead.
And I had them
Plantings come to
eliminate,
challenge.
honestly, I had them eliminate a bunch of planting
Budget
beds.
item.
Yeah, I had them eliminate a bunch of islands from that plan, and they did, the landscape architect did a really good job in areas that would be tough to mow. They put ground cover instead of grass, and so they did think of that a little bit, but it's still a pretty aggressive plan, even with the elimination, and there is just certainly no skimping on landscaping. You can't claim that on that plan.
And in that particular part of town,
Oh,
the people that own the properties there, not just Mr. Linda, take good care of it. There's already been a standard set, if you will. You know, and it's a challenging place to put this, and that's one of the challenges, so it'll cost.
And we obviously, the closest residential
Right.
parcel is the one just to the south.
Mhm.
So we put more than normal landscaping along that lot line to try to buffer that owner from the site
Well,
itself.
interestingly enough, that owner hasn't even called my office, which I thought was interesting.
And when you need a
I thought
mounted
for sure
unit, you got a
I'd
stable
call.
for the horse, so. You don't
Police
have-
owner's preoccupied with
Yeah.
a few problems.
All right.
You can tell him I gave him 5 more red cedars on his lot line. Though I did take out 3 elms that were shading the solar panels.
They were
So
also in
next
the
one?
septic system.
In the
so-
septic system.
So are we,
We have a motion and a second
We do.
Okay, wait, let me make sure I got the right section written down.
to waive the landscaping provisions.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion?
IVB 5.
Can we make that specific, like, the way it's written there, it just says in this
From the
section?
interior for the requirements for interior parking lot, because they've met it everywhere else.
Yeah, this
Are
is
you
only
making that an
parking.
amendment?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay, so a motion to amend interior,
So we need a second on the amendment?
Second.
JA.
Properly, we would vote the amendment and then the whole thing, so. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So now we go back to, as amended, to waive the landscaping
And my.
on the interior, right?
Making that motion was Bob? You made the
Bob and
motion?
Scott, yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Oh, okay.
Number 6, Bob?
Number 6, section 4C4, sheet size of 28 inches by 36 inches. 24 by 36. The standard architect sheets for this project are 30 inches by 42 inches sheets. And to be consistent with the architect's set, the sheets provided on 30-inch by 42-inch sheet size.
We are asking to go bigger. Right?
More trees will be cut
With
down.
your architectural plan.
I'll make that
Everybody
motion.
complained that we can't see.
I'll make the motion to accept the waiver.
Second.
Discussion?
Though I did just print them on too.
Call for the vote.
So we're-
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
so plan size bigger. Okay.
Number section 5C4K, providing cuts and fills, requesting a waiver from providing the cuts and fills on the site.
Can you just explain that? Because I just didn't understand. Can you show generally where you're making cuts, generally where you're making fills, and why it's such a big problem to come out with some rough volumes?
Wouldn't, does that help with the bidding process
Yes, it would.
to avoid discrepancies and change orders?
Yes, it would.
I would think so.
We can provide them. Typically, the contractor's gonna provide their own.
Well, that's his business.
That's correct. So sometimes to provide them. So just so, mainly the cuts are gonna be in here.
Just give us rough numbers. I mean,
Yeah, we can give
Cast
rough
in
numbers if
stone.
necessary, but.
With regard to the bidding process, what we issue to the contractors is the geotechnical report, which identifies the subject criteria. And then we give them the existing grades and then our finished grades. And it's to them to then put their number in as far as what's gonna be required for removal and replacement. If we were to go ahead and assign an exact value of this is how much we assume it's going to be, we're assuming the risk of them carrying that number and coming up with something different. And that would actually lead to more potential for a change order than if we wanted to issue the number.
So you're just gonna give us an unofficial planning purpose rough estimate, and like,
Separate from the plan.
whatever.
And you can
And you
qualify.
can continue with what you were talking about, cuts
That'll-
roughly in this area.
That'll at
you
least
know.
give the town an idea that if there's 1,000 yards being moved, that when a contractor bids and says, we gotta move 2,000, how come so much?
And it will meet a plan requirement.
Yeah, and this is a lump sum, so you won't know what the contractor estimated, obviously, until it comes to a change order. But in general, you don't see a line item that I'm removing
see a line
2,000
item, right.
yards, I'm removing X number. That's,
So
it's up
is
to
it-
the contractor to meet the
requirement,
requirements.
so-
Is there net material coming off or net material going on to the site?
Gut feeling is going to be a net removal. I don't know that for a fact, because this is being lower, but there is significant Title V sand. But then there's also the material that's inside the old building, which has to be removed.
Which is unknown, maybe.
It's unknown, based on the test pits, it's fill. Clearly, I mean, it's obvious, but it's not from the site.
The fill was brought there by the town after the walls were taken down and the foundation was removed.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
just if I may, if the town gave it any thought, the town owns a gravel pit. And if that could help in lowering the cost of this project where you might provide some of the fill material or be able to do that, it might help you, whether it's a $10,000 item or a $1,000 item, I can't tell you. But just, it's food for thought, if nothing else.
I actually recall that being discussed.
Okay.
It's just how you work it in with bidding law and all
Well,
that good stuff that hinders us and jacks up
Through the
everything.
chair, we
double
want them
the
to
price it
rewrite
should
that
be.
request
You can do it
and
after.
give it to us another time.
I think so.
All right, so you can give us a rough for planning purposes only
So
number.
So we're not making a motion to act on this, and we're gonna ask that it be rewritten
And it
and
is what it is.
reconsidered.
It
All right.
is what it is. Them giving us.
Unless someone wants to
volumes
make a
are gonna
motion
change
to
the
grant
plan.
it.
Correct.
Well, we can modify this.
Technically, if I provide you the cuffs and fills, I don't need a waiver.
Right.
Well, you don't need a waiver, right?
Correct.
So
Will
let's go
Number
to 8.
provide.
Okay.
Number 8, section 4C1, existing features on the landscape plan. The existing features are shown on the existing conditions plan, and to avoid confusion by the contractor,
That's really required.
and there is
That's what it says.
not any features that are to remain within the limits of work. The existing features outside the limits of work are not shown.
Landscaping plan showing all existing natural land features.
There aren't any features.
So whatever we show on the existing conditions are actually shown on the demolition plan to be removed.
Right.
So to show it on the landscaping plan is futile, because it's not there when the landscaper actually does his work.
I'll make a motion to grant this waiver.
Yeah.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Number 9, section 4CN, traffic study, requesting a waiver from providing a traffic study. The site was chosen by the town as a location of the police station. In addition, the traffic pattern for the police station is significantly less than the more intense use from the former Blue Jay restaurant.
I'll make a motion to grant this waiver.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5 vote yes.
Number 10, Section 4CR, Community and Fiscal Impact Assessment. The town of Sutton owns the parcel and chose the site for the police station during previous public meetings and hearings.
I say this to you every time, unless you have previously required this study, you do not need to grant a waiver. It says the planning board may require. This board did not require that upon filing, so you do not need a waiver.
Okay, make a motion to grant that waiver.
No, not need a waiver.
Oh, is that what you just said?
You don't need one.
Well, I feel like you got something done.
One more time.
Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Yeah, the
so what
homework
did you
assignment.
do?
The sign,
Okay, so sign you said is 18 square feet?
yes,
And
with,
the posts are 3.16 square feet each, there's two of them, so
2.1.
6.32 square feet per post.
You want to act on that, or you want to see a picture? Before you
I
act on
think
it?
I'd like to see
I wanna see a
pictures and
picture.
dimensions.
Okay, so we'll take care of size of sign. Loading spaces we took care of, parking in the setback we found finally, we took care of. Landscaping provisions we took care of, sheets we took care of, cuts and fills you're gonna get us.
Yep.
Existing features we took care of, traffic studies we took care of, community fiscal we didn't need. Okay, so
And
just
the
size.
pipeline. The
cuts,
pipeline's a
fills.
key item.
Yeah, size, cuts, fills, what's going on with the pipeline. All the comments you've received to date and.
Yeah, Marty, if you've got more comments, provide them.
And when do the order of conditions come from the conservation?
When
Does
you
that
continue.
influence us in our decision?
August 2nd? Yep. Wednesday.
So our next meeting is August 7, right?
Uh-huh. And where are you with them? Where are they?
What's that?
Where are you with Concom?
We had our public meeting, and we,
Behind us as usual.
they asked some of the same questions that you all did,
Mhm.
and then that's one of the reasons we've moved moved this as the storm section, and we'll try to address some of their other comments.
I believe we've gone through the list and addressed
That's correct.
everything.
That's correct. And one of their comments was they wanted to raise the building 2-3 feet. So the answer to that is during previous value engineering and moving and redoing the building, the ideal elevation is how we have it shown. Have it too high, then the building sits up like a pedestal. Too low.
It is a pedestal, right, Dennis?
But you don't want the building 4 feet, 5 feet higher than the road, like that corner.
No. The flood would get worse, yeah.
I believe their reasoning for raising the grades was to make this less severe. But in fact, since we're going 14 feet front to back anyway, it doesn't make a difference if we raise the building 100 feet or 2 feet.
But that slope is irrelevant.
Can you tell me why it's 14 feet from slab to slab, or?
There's a number of reasons. I mean, first off, the cell block height, we like to keep the cell ceilings as high as possible.
Okay.
And then we still have to have room for HVAC,
Right, utilities
structures,
above,
sprinklers,
right.
all of that. That's a really big reason why we have the 14 feet. Also, we've got that small fitness room in there, having headroom in there so you can actually extend your arms and do all of that's important as well. So those are two of the big drivers. And, there's a fair amount of HVAC and sprinklers and, quite frankly, an awful lot of cabling that goes back and forth between the communications equipment room and the dispatch room. So you need a fair amount of ceiling height now. Or above ceiling.
So is it good planning to have you on our next agenda? If you live?
Do you feel confident of being on the next agenda?
Yes.
Issuing a nice, tight, clean set of plans?
Yes.
That perhaps we should maybe have an actual in-person sit-down meeting the end of the week before the next meeting, so we can kind of go over the plans and all the concerns raised and make sure.
Yeah, so Marty, if you've got more questions,
Yeah,
comments,
Nikki had a
concerns.
list of them, I got some, and I'd be more than happy.
Do you know if Nick's is different than the ones he already gave us?
Probably not, I don't know what
No,
you
they're the
saw.
same list.
Same list.
Yeah, he usually will shoot me any new ones he thinks of, and I didn't get any.
So I think we've addressed all of his.
Good.
7:15. Is there anything on the agenda yet?
No, you're going to August 7th, so no, you can go 7:05.
Could I just ask one, with regard to the comments? Are those comments gonna be addressed through the board and answered through the board, or how does that work as far as like procedurally?
Yeah, so in theory, Marty gives them to Jen gives them to me, and I give them back, respond back to Jen through the board.
Okay.
That's how it should work.
So, yeah, whenever comments are submitted, they become public record immediately.
Right. Oh,
They're
yeah,
stamped
that was
in.
my question, because I just
They're
wanted.
stamped in, and then they go to whoever their point of contact is on the review sheet.
Okay.
So, but.
I just don't wanna miss anything, that's all.
If you want me to copy you a copy,
Yeah,
if you want,
I
I'm happy to
wouldn't
do
mind
that,
that. Thank you.
absolutely.
Seven.
Yeah,
7:05?
Give it 7, it's 7.
7:05. 87705. Bob, was that a motion?
I wanted to put it early on the agenda, as early as we could.
7:05.
7:05 is
And
pretty
So
early.
7:05, that's the motion, yes.
Second that,
And we'll be done by 9 at the latest,
like tonight.
Oh, great.
so we can all plan.
Second.
Stay on track.
Is there any
did.
discussion about the
Okay.
continuing
The who?
here? The continuance?
Oh, okay. yeah.
Call for the vote.
Gotta have discussion, right?
No, I thought you said something else. I thought you said like a different element of the plan.
Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Alright.
Opposed? 5-0.
87705.
Is there anything else to come before the board tonight?
No.
Motion to adjourn at 9:07.
Second.
All in favor?
No.
Aye.
We don't close it.
Aye. Aye.